The last chapter ended with talk of conditioning, which is to do with false identification or attachment. False identification, attachment to our notions. And chapter 68 goes into more detail about this conditioning. There's some scraping going on which I can't do anything about. Ram asked, "What is conditioning, O Lord? And how does it cause bondage? And what is liberation, and how is it attained?" Vasishta continued, "Conviction in the reality of the body, in one who has abandoned the distinction between the body and the self, is known as conditioning." So this means that there's either no awareness of the self, or the self is totally caught up with notions of the body. He who believes that the infinite self is limited and therefore seeks pleasure, thus gets bound. So either you've got an intellectual understanding of the infinite self, or you might even have touched the infinite self, but its boundless nature might not be apparent. You might just think, well, what's the big deal? And get on with your usual pursuits. This is where I think we can stress one of the purposes of the Yoga Vasishta to be awareness appreciation. We all stumble upon this awareness probably quite a lot, but we don't know what it is, or we don't appreciate what it is. We just think it's little old me, a little bundle of miseries or whatever, and get on with business as usual. The word used in this part of chapter 68 for conditioning is Samsaktti, which is usually translated attachment. And I think that it might be worth bearing that in mind. Later on in the chapter, a different word is translated as conditioning, and that is the word Samsangam, which is contact, which means contact or attachment. And the translators translated both these words as conditioning. But there's a subtler process going on here that we could examine. There's contact and then there's attachment. The contact comes with the attention. It depends what the attention is coming into contact with. And once the attention comes into contact with something, there's possible attachment to it and identification with it. So this process of identification of conditioning arises because of the sense, or the intuition even, that what's deep down inside ourselves, what the essence of our own consciousness is actually quite limited, not very interesting, and we must look elsewhere. On the other hand, he who inquires, all this is indeed the self, what do I desire, and what should I renounce, is established in the unconditioned state of liberation. So liberation is often described as the unconditioned. He who knows, I am not, nor is there another, or let these be or not be, and does not seek pleasure, is liberated. He is not addicted to inaction, nor does he get lost in the results of action. He is not given to exaltation or to depression. He renounces the fruits of actions by his mind, not by action. So you don't make a point of giving things up, you just give things up. It is by the rejection of the conditioning that bondage is got rid of, and the highest good gained. Conditioning is the cause of all sorrow. Conditioning can be illustrated by the following examples. 1. The donkey is led by the master's rope and, afraid it carries a heavy burden. 2. The tree rooted to the ground bears heat, cold, wind and rain. 3. The worm lies in a hole in the earth biding its time. 4. The hungry bird rests on the branch of a tree, fearful of predators. 5. The tame deer peacefully goes about grazing and falls a prey to the hunter's shot. 6. Numerous people are born again and again as worms and insects. 7. The countless creatures arise and fall in this creation, like waves on the surface of the ocean. 8. The weak human beings who, unable even to move about, die again and again. 9. Those shrubs and creepers which derive their nourishment from the earth and grow on earth. And 10. This very world illusion which is like a river, that carries in its stream the countless sorrows and sufferings. All these are the expansions of conditioning. So there's no further explanation given for these illustrations, and they might seem a little bit peculiar or even irrelevant, and the tendency might be just to want to read on. But with these kinds of things, it's usually worth exploring further. We've got this list of 10 things which are supposed to illustrate conditioning, and the first 5 are individual things, and 6 refer to numerous beings. We can interpret this any way we like, so I'm going to suggest something which you might go with or not. You might have your own ideas, and that's fine because there's no exposition given here. I would say that the first 5 we can understand as different attitudes to life, different colourings of conditioning. So the donkey is led by the master's rope and afraid. It carries a heavy burden. So these are the people that like to be led, or these are the aspects of us even that like to be led. There's usually an element of martyrdom about it. We carry on our heavy burden, but what choice do we have? What choice do we have? We just plod on, feeling oppressed and victimized. The tree rooted to the ground bears heat, cold, wind and rain. This could be a more stoic kind of attitude. Well, that's life, just got to get on with it. The key thing about all these forms of conditioning is they don't question things. They don't question the situation. They're a way of coming to terms with the situation without actually questioning it. 3. The worm lies in a hole in earth, biding its time. Don't bother me. I've got my little setup here. I've got my routines. I'll get by from one day to the next, and it'll soon be over eventually. That is life. Just find yourself a nice little hole until it's all over. 4. The hungry bird rests on the branch of a tree, fearful of predators. So the bird can fly, and it can fly and it can feed, but it doesn't because it's afraid. So fear here is the thing. The hungry bird is afraid to look deeply into things, because what will happen if you start doing that? What will happen to your responsibilities, to your job? You've got to get on with these things. If you start looking into the meaning of the bigger picture, then isn't everything going to fall apart? So these are the excuses that people would make for, or that we might make for, not looking deeply into ourselves, because we've got other more urgent things to attend to. The tame deer peacefully goes about grazing and falls a prey to the hunter's shot. So the tame deer peacefully goes about grazing. That's quite a nice picture, isn't it? And these might be the part of us which is, or refer to people who are quite content with things. What's the big problem? I've got my simple pleasures. I have my television and I enjoy a drink. What's the problem? You're going to get shot down at some point.